morning I wanted to talk about primal myths. I've been studying for years the mythologies of the world, studying history, anthropology, archaeology, all kinds of things, looking for the primal myths of mankind, the ones that all other religions have based themselves on. And one way I've conducted the search is by studying cultures across time and around the world to find those few ideas that are common to them all. And if you do that, you start to realize there's a few common themes that show up in almost every religion. And I'm going to start with one of those today. In the beginning, and religions from all over the world was covered in water. And then in some form, and it varies from culture to culture, but what's the same is the idea. In some form, God reaches down into the water and brings up the land. That mythological theme shows up everywhere, time after time after time. Not every religion starts with that, but everywhere in the world you can find somebody that did. So what's the meaning behind it? It's one of those primal myths, one of those early teachings that they wanted to be sure everybody understood. Let us start with water. Water represents lots of different things in mythology, but in this context, it represents chaos. Water, take the ocean for example. It's never the same. It changes constantly. You drop somebody in the middle of the Atlantic without any other form of reference, they can't tell you where they're at. It's not like they can sit there and go, oh, I remember that wave. It was there last time I came by here. It changes all the time. Waves can be so powerful that they can actually make aircraft carriers rock. Aircraft carriers. Some of those things are like the size of the Empire State Building. And they move. Every so often from out of nowhere, a super wave can show up that can swamp any size ship. Then again, it can become so calm that there are hardly any waves at all. It changes constantly. It is never the same. It is never recognizable. It is uncontrollable. Try to stop a wave. If it's a tall enough wave, my advice is take a deep breath before you try to stop it. You're not going to do it. It's chaos. Absolute chaos. Everything in flux. Everything changes constantly. Nothing recognizable or controllable. There's an old naval saying, the minute you think you understand the ocean, that's the minute it gets you. But God reaches into this chaos and pulls out the land. And land represents order. Because the land, for the most part, is predictable. We even come up with terms, landmarks, because the land is so predictable. There are two hills on Cook Road between Indianola and High Street. I know this because it's how I go to get comic books. I've been going down this road for years now. And it doesn't matter what time of day, it doesn't matter what time of night, it doesn't matter what the weather conditions are, those two hills are always there. It's completely predictable. Always the same elevation. Unlike the ocean, where they would be shifting and changing constantly, they're completely predictable. That's order. That's the importance of that myth, that out of chaos, God creates order. And if we look at things scientifically, that's what most scientists say happened in the beginning. In the beginning there was chaos, and then the laws of nature took over, and they started imposing order on things. So that atoms like hydrogen started forming, and from hydrogen formed other things. And from these orderly beginnings we started having stars that formed solar systems, that formed galaxies, that formed our physical universe. Order came out of chaos. Now there is a further part to this myth. God reaches down into the waters and pulls up the land, but the water still surrounds the land. Out of chaos, God creates order, but chaos does not disappear. Chaos is still a part of life. There's another very common thing that just about every religion in the world has. It's called the trickster god. A lot of people have a mistaken idea that the trickster god is evil. He's not. He's chaos and order mixed together. You're going about your life and everything seems to be going fine, and suddenly you trip on a banana peel, fall, and break your arm. That's chaos. You go to the doctor, they set your arm, you're going around in a cast now, grumbling and complaining about chaos, and how could this happen to me? And then something happens, you talk to somebody, or this causes you to figure out how to do things in a different way. I mean, if you're right-handed and you break your right arm, you've got to figure out how to do things left-handed suddenly. But whatever happens, you talk to somebody, it opens up a new understanding. That's what the trickster god does. Chaos leads to order. He breaks into your orderly world, causes a little bit of chaos, and from it comes new growth and understanding. And from that new growth and understanding, you're able to create even more order in your life. Like, for example, you now know not to step on banana peels. At the very least, you've learned that much. Chaos and order. Chaos is still out there. It'll occasionally erupt into your life, but rarely, if you maintain the orderliness of your life. Now, by orderliness of your life, that does not mean that you seek to have absolute control over everything. Because that doesn't work. But what it means is you follow the laws and rules that God laid down that creates order out of chaos. Back in the Wild West days, and say Dodge City, people had to go around with guns strapped to their hip. Because you didn't know when some nut was going to try to kill you. That's chaos. We still have nuts out there that'll try to kill people. But for the most part, we live in an orderly society. Thou shalt not murder. By following that law, we create order and make life better for ourselves and for everybody around us. If everybody were absolute sociopaths that you couldn't trust and that could at a moment snap and go on a killing spree, would you ever relax? Would some of you be sitting right now with your backs to others? No, you wouldn't. It's the fact that you know that people are following the moral law of God, that there is order. But I would like to take that one more, or oh, he's speaking in tongues. Or babbling in old age, it's one of the two. Take that moral law of thou shalt not murder and take it further. I prefer to say revere life. Because it makes me think of it in a different way. At the core of your soul is a spark of God's life energy. There is a divine part of God within every soul. More than just not commit murder, I revere and honor the divinity that's in you. I respect that. Life, when you see it that way, is an incredibly precious gift from God, and one that we must treat with care and respect and awe. Every second of life you have, you should see it with awe and wonder. Now, revering life means that you always seek the path of peace. It means you don't seek to abuse others, but it also means you don't let anybody else be abused or hurt. Is it reverence of life if you stand there and watch while somebody else is being killed? You could have prevented it. You may have had to hurt the attacker, you may have had to kill the attacker. Are you revering that person's life who is being killed? Especially if it's an innocent, a child, or somebody elderly or sick. Revere life. And we create order out of chaos. Respect other people's property. Thou shalt not steal, but let's take it up a notch. Because you know, there are some people that don't steal property, they vandalize it. And yet they've still stolen from the owner of the property. If you've had your property vandalized, you no longer feel safe. You're in a world of chaos. If you respect other people's property, then we create order. That one is a lesson that I wish a lot of people would learn. There are many ways in which people disrespect somebody's property. Well, it starts with us. We teach by example. Honor marriage. Again, that is, do not commit adultery, but let's go further. How many movies are out anymore, or TV shows, that are all about adultery or flirting or destroying families? That's not honoring marriage. And even though I realize that in recent decades the government has gotten involved, issuing a license, it actually is not anything to do with the government. Marriage always was and should be a religious thing. And people would honor marriage more if it was seen that way, because you were making a vow, not just to the other person, not to some civil government organization. You were making a vow of honor to God. That I will respect and honor my marriage. And when everybody saw it as a religious consideration, there was more honoring of it. Those whom God has brought together, let none separate. By getting people to see marriage as a vow, a pact with God, we elevate it again to where it should be. And believe me, that would create an awful lot of honor. I mean, order out of chaos. Be trustworthy. We already covered stealing. This is something more. Be worthy of other people's trust. They should be able to rely on you. You should be a person of your word. If they ask a question, they should be able to expect your honesty. It doesn't have to be mean or cruel. That's not what honesty means, although some people these days seem to think that's what it means. But it means they should be able to trust you when they ask you something. It means that they should be able to leave their most valuable, precious possession with you. And know that it will always be taken care of and safe. It means that around you, they can relax. They don't have to put up defensive walls to protect themselves. You are so trustworthy that they just feel safe around you. Be temperate. An awful lot of trouble comes about in this world because of excesses. Anything taken to an excess is bad for you. Go back to the image of chaos. We need water to survive. Too much water, you drown. You need oxygen. Too much pure oxygen is bad for you. Take things in moderation. Be temperate in thought, word, and deed. Be charitable. That doesn't just mean giving of your money, though you should tithe to your church. I don't know why people always laugh when I say that. It can mean giving of your time. It can mean giving of your prayers. It can mean talking about the cause. One of the most powerful forms of advertising is word of mouth. If you tell other people, hey, I have found this great church, you really should go to it, you're helping that charity. You're being charitable. Whatever the cause, tell people about it. Just remember the one before it. Be temperate. Tell people about it. Don't bore them. Be respectful. Yes, sir. No, ma'am. Thank you. Please. Look somebody in the eyes when you talk to them. Firm handshake. These are ways of being respectful to people. Even sometimes when you're not feeling it towards the person. You know, I know quite a few police officers, and I've watched the series Cops, and I am always stunned when I watch something like that, or dashboard video, when some police officer is wrestling somebody to the ground and still saying, sir, please do not do that. Sir, would you please calm down? Sir, stop doing that. Now, how many of us would be saying sir and please in that situation? They're being respectful, not just to that person, but to everybody around. If you had small children and you suddenly saw a police officer tackle somebody and start cussing that person out, you wouldn't want that. Be respectful. Pay attention though. Notice those who don't deserve your respect. It doesn't mean you're allowed to cuss them out. Read Shakespeare sometimes. They would start words off with, sir. Read some of their insults. They are poetry. They are things of beauty. And in this day and age, with public education being what it is, you'll leave the person so stunned they don't know what you said. Until they Google it on their iPhone, and then you're in trouble. But remember, under revere life, you honor and respect your life as well. If somebody else is not deserving of your respect, then they're not deserving of your company either. Be respectful. Live in such a way that you will be proud for God to know what you said and did. Because I can tell you right here and right now, God knows. God is present every second of your life, and God is aware of everything you have done. And if that is making any of you to sit out there and go, uh-oh, then you have a chance to change. Live courageously. I especially want this one put out there in spiritualism because I have met far too many people who say they are spiritualists in church, but won't say it outside the church.
Yes, right.
The Catholic honor people as saints who would rather have gone to their death than renounce their religion. We have people who are afraid they'll be seen as kooks and nuts because they talk to spirits and do healing and all of that sort of stuff. And as long as we hide who we are, we can never change people's attitudes. However, living courageously means more than that. It means all of these moral laws, you live them. You don't just give voice to them. And I know people like that out in the world, in spiritualism and in other religions, who will happily quote to you the Ten Commandments. They don't live them, but they'll tell you off about them. Living courageously means you live your principles every second of your day. They are out there for all the world to see. And if somebody wants to ask you questions, answer to the best of your ability. Now, I mentioned the Ten Commandments, and in that one they have that you will not put any other God before God, for God is jealous. No, God isn't. Jealousy is a human emotion, born of ignorance. God is all-knowing and all-powerful. God has no reason to be jealous of anything. Instead, I would say, thank God for everything in your life, every day of your life. Actually set time aside in your day to thank God for your life. To thank God for the blessings in your life. This is not a time to tell God your problems. This is not a time to complain to God about your aches and pains. Set time aside to show gratitude for all that you have in life, including your life. Give thanks to God. And in so doing, you will begin to see how many blessings there are in your life. You will begin to see how many good things you have. You will begin to love life. And that creates order out of chaos. Simple rules. Revere life. Respect other people's property. Honor marriage. Be trustworthy. Be temperate. Be charitable. Be respectful. Live courageously. And give thanks every day to God. That's what the primal teaching is about. That with these rules, and by living these rules, we create order in our life. Yes, there'll still be chaos out there, just like the ocean surrounds the land. But if you notice, I live in Ohio. The ocean's far away from me. I live in orderliness. The chaos is far away. It may erupt occasionally into my life, but I still create order and move forward. There are other primal myths, and in the coming year, I'm going to bring them up and talk about them. I may not tell you what Sunday they'll be, so you'll have to show up every Sunday to find out. But then again, I did say being charitable means showing up, helping out. Your presence here is part of being charitable. You give fellowship to others so that they may feel comfortable and welcomed. And if there is a Sunday when you can't make it, remember, healing is usually between 11 and 11:30. Send out some prayers. There are people who need it. And if you can't make it on a Sunday, please remember our address is 3185 Morris Road. Just slip it into your donation into an envelope. You know, we really should just provide a crest envelope. Your stamp is part of your donation.
Oh, no, no, no.